Listen, so today's Saturday, January 11th, 2025. My name is Diego, and listen, I have a testimony, sort of a story to share. I'm not sure if I'm going to share this. I'm not sure if anyone is going to see this, but listen. When I tell you I have been on a spiritual journey since yes, yeah. Anyways, I'll probably edit all that out. But when I tell you I've been on a spiritual journey since October, well, what am I even saying October? I've been on a spiritual journey for some time, longer than I care to remember, but a journey nonetheless. And when I tell you about this thing called discernment, you don't, you see, like how, you can conceive things, you can conceive an understanding of something, you can read, you can find out whatever. Discernment is something entirely different, and it only comes from one place. You can only get discernment from one source, and that source is through prayer to Christ Jesus, right? I mean, okay, so let me start by telling you what happened was. I think that might give this more structure. So how should I start? I used to be a homosexual, you know. Yeah, I used to I used to be that. But I remember thinking the entire time, even when I was dipping it and doing it, there was always this thought in my mind. I always held that I was always a very hopeful person, right? But I always held out this one single strand of hope that if there was even a smidge of a chance that I can escape that, I would take it. Because I did not want to be a homosexual. I was essentially forced into it because of where I was, the people I had around me, and I'm not placing blame here. I'm saying this is the way the devil used everything that was around me to influence me into the decisions that I made. Yes, no one forced me into homosexuality per se. I did choose it. And you know how I know I chose it? Because it got to the point where because I was a 14-year-old child, right? I was a teenager. Think about the life of a teenager. Remember when you used to be a teenager? You don't have a whole lot of control. You now trying to grow into some sort of a personality. You know the things you like, you know what you don't like, you know you don't like these people talking to you the way they choose to be talking to you. And these type of things. You become what we call a rebel. And also you learn how to tell some really elaborate stories along the way, because you easily mess up in trying to do this type of open rebellion thing the teenage way, right? Anyhow, in my case, I existed in four places that I can recall. I existed first and foremost at home, because obviously I was living there. I also existed in my neighborhood, because that is where my home was. So yeah, I existed there as well. I also existed at school, because in the life of a child, most of your time you spend at school, or a very big chunk of it you spend at school. And because my peers, at least the ones that tolerated me at the time, some of them were in church, and hey, I can easily find my way to church and meet them. I existed in church as well, right? And it got to the point in my teenage life where I could not exist in any four of these spaces peacefully. Like, it just wasn't happening. Everyone in these spaces, or a lot of people in these spaces, try to tell me that because I don't sound like most boys, or because I don't have the same interest as most boys, or because I know how to use my mind and not my fists, because I prefer not to fight, I prefer to fix it, I prefer to give someone a chance rather than to condemn them, because I know that I know what it feels like to be on the other end of that. I was simply different. And because of this, they start to see me as less than. Now, mind you, during this time, I'm talking about in the mid to in the late 2000s to the early 2010s is when I'm talking about there. Like around, or to give a more accurate timeline, let's say around 2007, when I was still in primary school, and 20 shit, turns out it started at 2007 and it never did finish. But anyway, a lot of people in these spaces saw me as less than. I was supposed to be. They had this expectation of what I was supposed to be. That expectations, everyone talks about these gender roles and things. I was a non-conformist. I was like, I don't want to do all of that. That is too much work. I'm not interested. They see I was lazy. They convinced me I was a lazy ass bitch. Yes, they did. But my whole thing is that no, that requires me to do too much. Especially when I can get the same results without putting myself through all of the headache. I simply prefer the path of least resistance in that regard, right? So, I was always someone who preferred to use my head. I was a good performer in school. I was always a good performer in school, right? With the power of hindsight, if I had actually put my best foot forward, hey, I would probably be a PhD holder by now, but then I would have been somewhere else. Anyhow, and then all of a sudden, people in the school started to tell me, oh, I was gay. I was like, listen, whatever. Right? Because they don't know what the hell they're talking about. And I told them every time they tried to put up a mess, I said, no, I'm not gay. I told them I was not gay. As they were saying that, in effect, I was a homosexual. And I will tell you why that is false in a minute. But anyways, it started to happen in school. It started to get to the point where I just did not want to be in school because I just could not exist in school without someone taunting me with some bullshit. Anyhow, I was like, listen, at some point I am going to be out of here, so let me endure. And I had the protection of the girls that I hung around because I realized that most of these bullies were coming from the boys. They did not like me. They could not tolerate me for what reason, I don't know. But they didn't like me. They couldn't stand the ground I walked on. So I stuck with the girls because, at least I can make an ass of myself, make them laugh, and they tolerate my presence. Because I got rebukes from them as well. But that was easier to deal with than, open rebellion because the boys, yes, they fought me. Like when I was in first form, I had just gone into high school. A boy picked a fight with me. I could not remember why he wanted to fight me. I started to fight him, but once I saw that the crowd was drawing, I started to stop because, I didn't want to be caught like this in public. I'm in front of all these people. I had some amount of decency in me. And each time I got into a fight and the crowd got bigger, I stopped. They say, oh, Diago, take beat up. Whatever. I don't fight. Fighting is not my thing. In any case, whatever. I take beat up. Anyhow, I was like, listen, it's easier hanging with the girls, whatever. At least I have an easier time existing in school with them because it was either existing in school with them or somewhere else. And lo, I was not trying to enrage my mother by being somewhere else when I was supposed to be in school. That would not have been a good thing. Anyhow, then this went ahead to extend itself into the neighborhood I was living in. I couldn't walk out of my house. Not a single day without someone rebuking me, calling me gay, telling me about, you're going to meet your man, or you're texting your man because I was walking the phone, all of these things. And then some of them started to get very descriptive, like telling me things that would take place between men and men. Cause lo, I had no idea what takes place between two men. I was a child. Anyhow, I was like, okay, fine. As often as I can not have to go into the neighborhood is safer for me. Give me some peace of mind. So that meant I became a house bird. I was in the house all the time. Even my mother was trying to convince me, go to the playfield, go to the community center ground, interact with the boys, your own age, mingle. I knew I didn't want to go because I did not feel safe going there. You don't want them to, beat me to a pulp and left me in there to die? No, no, no thanks. No thanks. No thanks. No, no, I was not having that. Anyhow, I became a house. Hold on, hold on. Like I said, this is a testimony. And if there's one entity I know that will prevent a testimony, it is the devil. So let's go. Like I was saying, I just was not trying to go out there, so I became a house bird. Right? Obviously, I took a liking to the television, the Disney. I saw the Cheetah Girls, I saw the Princess Diaries, I saw the Barbie movies, I saw the Tom and Jerry, I saw the Yu-Gi-Oh, I saw the Pokemon, I saw the Corpse Bride, I saw the Harry Potter, you couldn't tell me number of movies. Anyhow, and it wasn't until I started to feel as though I was getting rebuked in my own home that I was essentially launched into an existential crisis. Mind you, at this time, I am 15 years old. Think about that. A 15-year-old boy, where everyone is convincing him that he is a homosexual. They're calling him gay. Mind you, he's not sexually active. He's not even interested in sleeping with someone. All he wants to do is to get good grades to keep his mother off his back. At least this will in turn help him to get a well-paid job that he can build a nice house for his mom, help her out, and he can probably buy some favor. Because, as a single parent, she was thrown into the workforce, so I did not see much of her. I essentially grew up without even knowing the woman. Anyway, it's no shade to her. She did the best that she could do. She did what she knew how to do to raise her child. What was the alternative? It is what it is. But it did affect me though, because I didn't know her and I knew that she had a bit of a temper at that time. I was afraid of her. I was mortally afraid of her. I had the fear of God in that woman. Which is why the first chance I got, I rebelled, and I rebelled hard. I rebelled to the point it even hurt the woman, and it frightened her. I saw it, and that distressed me because I thought that that was supposed to be empowering. Oh, I finally stood up to my mother. It did not feel good. I felt awful. I apologized immediately after I caught myself, but I felt awful after doing it. I condemned myself for doing it. But that came later. Let's go back to where we were. Didn't see much of her, so I started to, when the molestation thing started to happen to me in the house, well, my grandmother was the only one I knew how to talk to. Like I said, I had shame. I was easily embarrassed. I didn't want this to be a thing. Everyone already thought I was gay. Now, if I tell them that a man in my house is touching up on me, could you imagine? Could you imagine if they didn't know that was happening to me in my house? Child. So what I did one morning before I left to go to school, I wrote her a nice little letter outlining everything that was taking place in the house.